I'm Ravibandu Vidyapati, traditional Sri Lankan dancer and drummer. My maternal and paternal lineages trace back to many generations of traditional dancers and temple painters. Sri Lanka, the pearl of Indian Ocean, is a land studded with many beautiful and historic Buddhist temples all over the island. For over 2,500 years, the Sri Lankan culture has been governed and shaped by Buddhist thinking. Even though we have other cultural elements harmoniously integrated with our own culture, the Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist way of life has played a predominant role in the formation of the Sri Lankan culture. For centuries, the Buddhist temple and the bhikkhus or the monks have played an important role not only in the religious life of the people but also in their social and cultural lives. The Tale of Ceylon Temples surveys and explores the myths, legends and histories, the arts and aesthetics, and the rituals, customs and manners of the ancient Buddhist temples of Sri Lanka. I wish to take you through a journey colorful and serene into the past, into the mists of the history. So, join me and get this rare experience of digging into the past through 150 Raja Maha Viharas, Tampita Viharas and Len Viharas of Sri Lanka. I am on the banks of the beautiful and historic river Kelaniya. The legend has it that Lord Buddha, in his third visit to Sri Lanka, bathed here in this river along with 500 other monks. This beautiful chamber is built enclosing this huge slab of stone and this serene statue of the Buddha, remembering and symbolizing that incident of the Buddha's bathing in this river. There is yet another temple on the other side of the river called the Kelaniya Vihara, and the belief is that all the robes and the dining bowls of the Buddha and the monks were enshrined in a stupa thereof. There are many historic incidents connected with the two temples, the Kelaniya Vihara and Kelaniya Vihara. I am now at the main entrance of the Kelaniya Raja Maha Vihara. Kelaniya Raja Maha Vihara is a sacred and one of the significant places of Buddhist worship in Sri Lanka. It is also an important venue of the history of Buddhism in Sri Lanka as a place blessed with the presence of Lord Buddha 2,500 years ago. So, let's go in and see what we do have to see inside and learn more about this historic temple.
Playing ceremonial drums to pay homage to the Buddha has been a long-standing tradition in Sri Lanka. In keeping with that age-old custom, Shabda Puja or sound offering is made 3 times a day. Daula, the large cylindrical drum, Tammatama, the two-faced kettle drum, and Horanava, the traditional Sri Lankan horn, are used here.
Right behind me is the main entrance to the main shrine room of the temple. The outer architectural form and the facade seem to be inspired by the classical South Indian architecture and the use of ochre as the main color of the entire building and a range of earth colors in the paintings inside makes this temple a unique one.
this curved decorative stepping stone known as the Sandakada Pahana and has a great tradition tracing back to thousands of years to the Anuradhapura period. The temple building has 4 main halls. This is called the Raja Pilimage, the King's Image House. This is the statue of the Naga king Mani Akkika, on whose invitation the Buddha delivered a sermon to the gathering. The paintings that adorn the walls of this hall belong to the 18th century and are done in a style known as the Kandyan period painting. The topmost strip on that wall depicts Sat Satya, how the Buddha spent the first 7 weeks after attaining Nibbana or the Great Enlightenment. All these paintings are done horizontally in a linear narrative form, a continuous narration of the whole Jataka story from beginning to end without framing or without breaking the incidents. So it's like one whole procession of people performing a story in a linear narrative manner. These figures are drawn against a dark, almost black background, as if they are appearing from darkness. And this reminds me of the Italian painter Caravaggio, whose figures also seem to appear from darkness. This hall of the temple is called the Uth Pilimage, or the reclining image house, and this is perhaps the oldest building of the Kelaniya temple. Inside this shrine room, on the wall opposite the main statue are painted some very special figures of deities and gods. Here is yet another famous painting from the Kelaniya temple, known to all Buddhists of Sri Lanka, including children, as it is found in the school textbooks too, because this depicts one of the most important events of the history of Buddhism in Sri Lanka, the bringing of the sacred tooth relic of the Buddha to Sri Lanka by Princess Hemamala and Prince Danta. It is said that Hemamala brought it hidden in her hair in order to save it from the enemies. This painting depicts the bringing of the sacred Bodhi sapling to Sri Lanka by Arahant Sanghamita Theri. This is the Ran Pilimage, or the golden image house, and is the most important place where all devotees would come and offer flowers to Lord Buddha. I am in the new shrine room of the Kelaniya temple now. And these world-renowned paintings were done between the years 1932 and 1946. It seems the artist has been inspired by the classical style of Ajanta paintings in developing and creating these paintings at Kelaniya temple. The large painting on top depicts the Buddha's first visit to Sri Lanka in Mahayangana. Here is an interesting painting. These pictures depict a very dramatic story connected to the kingdom of Kelaniya. Due to an injustice done to a Buddhist monk by King Kalanitissa, nature punishes him by creating tide waves, a tsunami. In order to save the island, the king has to sacrifice his daughter to the sea. So the young princess was put in a boat and released to the water. The young princess floated
and reach the southern part of the island to a place called Kirinda. These new paintings at Kelaniya Vihara are considered a landmark of 20th century Buddhist art in Sri Lanka. The Chaitya or the Stupa is the next important place of worship in a Buddhist temple. And this is the great Stupa of the Kelaniya Raja Maha Vihara. And there are many stories and legends behind this great Stupa. There are three main places of worship in a Buddhist temple. The Bodhi tree is one of them. The Buddha attained Nibbana or the great enlightenment seated under a Bodhi tree. And this Bodhi tree at Kelaniya Raja Maha Vihara is a special one because it has its own stories behind this Bodhi tree. Let's hear the stories from the most competent person, the chief incumbent of the temple, Venerable Professor Kollupitiye Mahinda Sangharakkhita Thero. Swamin Wahansa, can you kindly tell us the background and the history of the Kelaniya temple and the legends and stories connected with the temple?
Thank you very much for inviting me to say a few words. Kelaniya temple is one of the oldest temples in Sri Lanka. The Buddhist history began when the Lord Buddha visited this temple. According to our chronicles, it says the Buddha visited 3 times to Sri Lanka. The third visit was to this place. The then king, the Maniakika, Naga king, he invited Buddha personally to visit his state, and May full moon day, Lord Buddha visited this temple with 500 arahant. Actually, this incident was reported in our chronicles.
We've heard that there are many legends, mythical stories about the stupa, the great stupa.
Normally in the world, we have 6 shapes of stupas. The oldest shape is the grain shape. When you consider about Kelaniya stupa's construction, actually it follows the grain shape. This is the only stupa that you find in Sri Lanka. Especially that you find in this stupa is when the Buddha visited this temple, the king, the Naga king, he offered his own throne. That was a gem-studded throne. So Buddha used it. Afterward, the king did not want to use it. So he considered this chair as a very sacred one because allowed by Buddha's sitting. So what he did was, when he constructed this stupa, original stupa, he enshrined this chair and built this stupa. Beside that, he also enshrined the hair reliefs of the Buddha.
The Bodhi trees are a great symbol of Buddhist worship in every temple in Sri Lanka. What is the speciality of the Bodhi tree at Kelaniya Raja Maha Vihara?
Actually, this Bodhi tree is one of the oldest Bodhi trees that you find in Sri Lanka. Normally, in 3rd century, when the Sanghamitra brought the Bodhi tree to Sri Lanka, the king, of course, got the first 8 saplings of that Bodhi tree what we have in Anuradhapura. So this is one of the sapling of the Bodhi trees.
Swamin Wahansa, we know that Buddhists from all over the world come to worship Kelaniya. Why do all Buddhists from all over the world pay such great obeisance to the Kelaniya temple?
I can say that not only Buddhists but also non-Buddhists too visit this temple. I can say simply there is religious value. Of course, religious value is of course open to the Buddhist people in the world. There is another section that is we call the cultural value. Since this is the place where Lord Buddha visited, actually it is a holy place. Normally, there's a belief among the Sri Lankan that if you worship at least one time coming here, then you can subdue all the past karmic forces. Beside that, cultural value is that if you come to this temple, you find the wonderful paintings in the temple. You have two sections, all paintings as well as new paintings. So the person who interested about knowing the Sri Lankan art, of course, this is the best place to learn that.
It is during the month of January that the Kelaniya temple and its surroundings get most active and festive because of the famed Durutu Perahara or Kalani Perahara, the grand street religious and cultural pageant.